Hi. Okay, today's topic, the present simple and the present progressive and the contrast between the two. Let's take a look at that. The first question that is usually, well, if not asked by my pupils, then it's something that goes through their heads is, how many present tenses? I mean, why do you have more than one? Well, yes, English does. And, well, the thing is like this. In fact, time flows, or at least that's how we perceive it. But in different languages, we decide to break up time into segments so to be able to speak about it, right? And different languages pick different segments. So Croatian, for instance, when it comes to verbs, uses 3.5 tenses in everyday speech. What I mean by 3.5? Well, we use in Croatian perfect, which is our past tense, Croatian present, which is a present tense, and there's two future tenses, but here in this part of Croatia, we use only one, right? Bumišljen. Okay, and you may occasionally hear some pluperfect, also imperfect, but that's actually quite rare. The other two I'm not even going to mention nowadays, an imperfect, because no one uses those ever, and if they do, they show no contrast between them and the regular perfect. So, for all intents and purposes, we use 3.5 tenses, right? In English, there's 13 tenses plus other verb forms, so some 20 different forms connected with different meanings in total. Now, of course, in everyday language, maybe not all of those are used that much, but there's at least some 10 or dozen verb forms used regularly, so like 3 or 4 times more than in Croatian. Yeah. So that's the idea. In different languages, we use different ways to divide time into segments. Now, please don't think that English here is particularly crazy, because Croatian, for example, happens to have 7 different noun cases. In English, we make do with 1 for nouns and 2 for pronouns. So we say, Jack loves Martha, Martha loves Jack, I love you, you love me. That's it. Okay, so back to present. When I say tense, I use it here to talk about two things. One is the positioning an event, an action into time, okay? And the other one is how we look at it. So we call it time and the aspect. And in this case, we will be talking about two English tenses, the present simple and the present progressive or continuous. And in each of these, the name present has to do with positioning the events at the time, and the other part, simple or progressive, aka continuous, has to do with how we look at these events. Right, so first I'm going to give you an overall idea of the difference in the concept between the two tenses. Why we have the present simple and the present progressive, why two present tenses at all. Okay? And after that, we're going to talk about the form of the tenses and then some basic usage tips. What's important to notice here is that the same outside events, the same actions in the real world can be described with the present simple and the present progressive, because it's about the way we see these actions. There's a difference. Okay, let's show this on an example. So both the present simple and the present progressive can describe simple actions such as going to school, right? But with the present simple, we decide to see the action as a whole, everything from the beginning to the middle to the end. Whereas with the present progressive, we decide to only look at the action already in progress. So at the time when the action has already started, we can't see the beginning, and before the action ends, we can't see the end. In fact, as far as we know, it may not even end in the way we predicted. Okay, so Jack cycles to school. Jack is cycling to school. Now, in terms of our segmentation of time, this is basically what we do. Jack cycles to school, shows you the whole thing, right? The whole action. Whereas Jack is cycling to school, here you can see only the middle part of the action. This is what we are focusing on. We don't care about the rest. So let's show this once again. The present simple. Jack cycles to school looks like this. You have Jack leaving home, you have Jack cycling to school, and Jack coming to school. And we decide to show the entire action in our sentence. Our sentence deals with the whole journey from home to school. Whereas when you say Jack, when we want to use the present progressive, and we have the same actions in the real world, so also Jack leaving home, also Jack cycling to school, also Jack coming to school, but in the sentence Jack is cycling to school, we decide to focus only on his journey to school, and we don't watch this. If this were filmed by a camera, the camera will not show him leaving home. And as far as him getting to school, well, that's what he wants to do. But as far as we know, what can happen is Jack can get hit by a car while he's cycling to school, and then can be taken away to hospital and never see the school again. Right? So we focus on Jackie's cycling to school, on the progress of his journey. Right, and now something simpler, and this is the form, in this case of the present simple. So what in statements, it looks like this. First of all, we must learn what the base form means, because I'm going to use this, I'll be using this throughout the presentation. So the base form is the form of the verb which you can find in the dictionary. For example, eat, sleep, repeat. And the base form will suffice for I, you, we, they. So we can use only the base form with I, you, we, and they. And that's it. That's the present simple. I eat a lot of chocolate, right? But for the third person singular, he, she, it, we need to add s to the base form. So we say she eats a lot of chocolate too. Now notice one thing here. This s business, well, the spelling is not always straightforward. Sometimes the way we write this changes. And for this, you should take a look at the spelling video. Let's move on. Right, no negation. For this, we need the concept of an auxiliary verb. There's the little helping verb, or the off verb, as I like to call it. In this case, we use do and does. The auxiliary helps us for the negative. So for I, you, we, and they, we just add do, the auxiliary, and not, and the base form. So I do not eat a lot of chocolate, or I don't eat a lot of chocolate. And for he, she, and it, we add does, and then not, and then the base form. Notice this doesn't have an s. The s is here. Okay, so it won't repeat it twice. Okay, she does not eat a lot of chocolate. She doesn't eat a lot of chocolate. Just a little bit. Okay, and as for the questions, well, we need an auxiliary here as well, do or does, and the questions are formed so that you put do first and then the subject, what we call an inversion, okay? And then you have the base form. So we ask, do you eat a lot of chocolate? And for he, she, or it, we ask, does she eat cereal for breakfast? Apparently, we all run out of chocolate here. Okay, for questions, if you have any questions, you should take a look at the questions video, and your questions might be answered. And for the present progressive, well, the most important thing here is to remember that when I mention the ing form, basically what I mean here, that to the base form you add ing or ing, right? So for it's like sleeping and eating. And in statements, this looks as follows. Am or is or are, this is the auxiliary verb to be, are followed by the ing form. So I am eating a chocolate cake, or I'm eating a chocolate cake. She is eating a chocolate cake, or she's eating a chocolate cake. And we, they, are eating apples. Apparently, we are all out of chocolate cake again. We're eating, or you're eating, or they're eating, right? Now for negation, this is really straightforward. You just add not, so I'm not eating, she isn't eating, and they aren't eating a cake. For the questions, you might want to take a look at the questions video again, but basically it's again the inversion thing, right? So instead of I am I, is she, are they eating a chocolate cake, right? Now the most important thing probably is the contrast between those two tenses, how they're used. So the present simple is used for actions and states which we can say permanent. I live in London, that's my home. Drava river doesn't flow fast. And we ask someone, where do you work? Right? Contrast this to the temporary nature of the present progressive. I'm living in London this year because of work. I don't consider London my home currently. Drava is flowing faster this spring. It doesn't normally flow this fast. And are you working this week or are you on holidays? I'm asking about this week. Compare this to when we say Bill doesn't work. Bill isn't working this week. He's on holidays. Bill doesn't work. He's unemployed. Also, present simple is used for facts, such as water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, or sometimes pupils drop out of school. Contrast this to the events which are going on right now, like water is boiling, right? Please turn the kettle off. Or for changes. This is important. Present progressive is used to express changes. More and more pupils are dropping out of school. This is something apparently that in the past they didn't drop out of school as much, so in the future they might drop out even more. Okay, and another thing that might help you is the signal words, the adverbs and adverbials, which are used very often with the present simple or with the present progressive. So for the present simple, we've got the adverbs and adverbials, which tell us how often something repeats. Notice that it doesn't really matter if it's never, or sometimes, usually, or always. Whenever you have this idea of a complete action which can then be repeated, there's the present simple. Also, it can be every day, or only when you're sad, or it can be once in a lifetime. Because once in a lifetime, I know this sounds as if it's not something that you can repeat, but if it happens, it could happen once again, or it will happen to someone else once in their lifetime. Okay, so the whole thing, we look at the action or the event as one thing, and then you can repeat it. Whereas for the present progressive, we look at the action or the event as something which is going on, which is in progress. So now, today, or this month only, or where you have something like still, this is pupils are still dropping out of school, and so on. Imperatives will usually also show us that it's a present progressive because they imply something is going on now. Look, listen. And there's some other things of present, which anything that for which you can realize that it's about something going on now, an action in progress. Therefore, the name. And that's it. Cheers.